I never thought my own son would look me in the eye and say the words that broke something inside me forever. I deserve more than her. I'm the man of this family. He didn't say it quietly. He didn't hesitate. He didn't care that his sister was standing right there, holding the tea tray with trembling hands. I remember the exact moment. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, sunlight spilling across the dining table. The kind of day that should feel peaceful, but peace doesn't survive where entitlement grows. My son, Hader, pushed his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. His wife smirked beside him like she had been waiting for this explosion. Dad, be practical. I'm the one who stays with you. I'm the one who carries the family name. I deserve more than my sister. It's simple math. Simple math. That's what he called it. My daughter, Elena, looked at him like she didn't recognize him anymore. To be honest, neither did I. I tried to stay calm. Hader, everything will be divided fairly. He slammed his palm on the table. Fair, fair. I've done more. You owe me more. Owe him, this boy. The same boy whose school fees I paid even while skipping my own meals some months. The same boy whose business failures I quietly funded. The same boy I defended when relatives criticized him. Before I could speak, his wife leaned forward with a smile too sweet to be real. Uncle, everyone knows sons get the bigger share. That's how families work. Families, funny word, coming from someone who joined ours only 2 years ago. Then Hader delivered the line that froze my breath. If you don't give me more, I'll take it anyway. I'll make sure of it. Elena's cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. And in that moment, with shards of glass reflecting the broken pieces of my family, I realized something. My son wasn't asking. He was threatening. And he had no idea that I had already changed the will. It all started on what I thought would be a peaceful Sunday evening. The whole family gathered around the dining table, my son, daughter, their spouses, and even a few close friends who were like family to us. I had prepared a special meal to celebrate my 60th birthday, feeling proud of the life I had built and the family we had. But as we ate, the atmosphere slowly changed. My son, Raj, who had always been the confident one, started speaking in a tone I didn't recognize. Mom, he said, cutting through the quiet, I think it's time we talked about the inheritance. My heart sank a little, but I smiled politely, thinking it was just a casual conversation. What happened next felt like a blow. Raj raised his voice, insisting he deserved a bigger share than his sister, Aisha. I work harder. I bring in more money. Why should she get the same as me? He demanded. His wife, Neha, nodded smugly beside him, while Aisha's face turned pale. I tried to explain calmly that the inheritance would be split fairly equally because I believed in fairness, not favoritism. But Raj wasn't listening. He mocked my efforts, said I was out of touch, and even accused me of planning behind his back. The dinner table, once full of warmth, was now icy cold. My friends exchanged worried glances, and my daughter looked ready to burst into tears. For the first time, I saw the side of Raj I never wanted to, a side filled with greed and disrespect. Before the night ended, Raj made a threat that would haunt me. If I don't get what I want, I'll take everything anyway. You can't stop me. His words weren't just arrogant, they were a warning, and that was just the beginning. After that terrible night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Raj's words in my head. How had my own son become so greedy? The son who once held my hand and promised to always stand by me was now threatening to tear our family apart. Over the next few days, the disrespect only grew. Raj started calling constantly, demanding meetings with my lawyer. He wanted papers signed immediately, papers that would give him control over some of our property. When I hesitated, he lashed out, accusing me of playing favorites. His wife Neha became even more aggressive behind the scenes, texting me aggressive messages and pressuring me to make things right. My daughter Aisha tried to stay out of the conflict, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. My closest friends advised me to be cautious. Don't sign anything without reading, they warned. This could be a trap. I nodded, but felt overwhelmed. Could I really trust my son anymore? One afternoon, Raj came over unannounced, dragging his wife with him. They demanded to see the property deeds. When I refused, they accused me of hiding things. The confrontation was ugly. I felt cornered, confused, and heartbroken. But little did I know the worst was yet to come. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my lawyer called me with shocking news. There was a letter of formal notice from Raj's side, claiming that I had no right to withhold property papers. They alleged that Raj was the sole heir to one of my most valuable assets. I stared at the letter, disbelief flooding me. How could this be? I had never signed anything that favored Raj over Aisha. Had someone forged my signature? Was there a hidden will? My hands trembled as I called Raj, hoping for an explanation. Instead, he laughed coldly. "You don't get to decide anymore, Mom. I have lawyers, you'll see." That night, as I sat alone in my living room, the weight of betrayal crushed me. The family I had trusted was turning into strangers. The battle for my inheritance had begun. But it wasn't just about money, it was about respect, love, and who I could still trust. And I knew I had to fight back. After the shocking dinner confrontation and the lawyer's alarming letter, the tension at home spiraled beyond what I ever imagined. It wasn't just Raj and me anymore. His wife Neha and her family began to take an active role, stirring the pot in ways I couldn't have foreseen. Neha, once a quiet presence at family gatherings, transformed into a fierce ally for Raj. Their parents started dropping by more often, always offering advice, but really pressuring me to make things easier for their son. Their subtle jabs felt like storms in my quiet home. One afternoon, Neha's mother, a woman I barely knew, arrived unannounced. She sat across from me with an icy smile, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It's time you understand, dear, that Raj's future is at stake. You must reconsider your stubbornness." Her words weren't just a suggestion, they were a warning. My own daughter, Aisha, watched silently from the sidelines. I saw the conflict in her eyes, torn between loyalty to her brother and love for me. But even Aisha's husband seemed hesitant, caught in the crossfire of the family feud. The house I had built with love felt invaded by alliances and manipulation. I began to realize this battle wasn't just about inheritance papers or property. It was about power, influence, and the quiet war between two sides of a family that once promised unity. One night, after a particularly tense dinner, I overheard Raj and Neha whispering in the hall. Their conversation was sharp, filled with plans I didn't want to hear. "Mom is weak. We just need to push a little harder," Raj said. Neha's voice was cold. "The lawyer will take care of the rest." I felt my world tipping. Their support wasn't just a shield for Raj, it was an army. Just when I thought I had braced myself for the worst, the phone rang one early morning. It was my lawyer, Mr. Malik, a steady presence throughout this storm. His voice was serious, but there was a hint of something unexpected behind the formality. "Mrs. Khan, we've uncovered something you need to see," he said. "There's a document, a will, that was drafted years ago, but never made public. It could change the course of this dispute." My heart pounded. I hadn't known about any other will. The only papers I had were those I had signed after consulting him recently. Was Raj hiding something, or was this a genuine secret from the past? Mr. Malik explained that the will had been drafted by my late husband shortly before he passed away, a will that favored Aisha with a larger share of the estate. But for reasons unclear, it was never registered officially. He warned me this revelation could be a double-edged sword. Raj and his lawyers might challenge the will's validity, accusing me of forging or manipulating documents. I knew I had to tread carefully. Over the next few days, Mr. Malik and I pored over the dusty papers, letters, and family records. As the pieces fell into place, I felt a strange mix of hope and fear. Could this secret will be the key to setting things right? Or would it only fuel the fire of betrayal? Meanwhile, Raj's camp didn't stay silent. The tension between their lawyers and mine grew into a bitter legal tug-of-war. Letters, phone calls, and threats filled the air like a heavy storm. Through it all, I clung to the hope that justice, and maybe even family love, could still prevail. As the legal battle raged, I realized that the real war was happening behind closed doors, in whispered conversations, in hushed phone calls, in long nights of plotting and regret. One evening, my closest friend Zara visited. She was someone I trusted, implicitly the friend who had seen my family at its best and worst. Over tea, she revealed something I hadn't expected. Amir, She said gently, using my late husband's name when she wanted to get serious. There's more to this family story than just money. Years ago, before your husband passed, there were tensions, secrets you weren't told. I listened, heart aching, as she told me about old disagreements between Raj and Aisha, about promises made and broken, about resentments that had festered quietly. Zara also hinted at something else, a hidden property deed, one that Raj's side had been trying to find for months. This deed wasn't just any paper. It was tied to a small but valuable piece of land that my husband had purchased secretly. If found, it could tip the inheritance scales even further. As I digested this, I knew the battle wasn't just legal. It was deeply personal, tangled in years of family history, old wounds, and the fragile bonds of trust. That night, I found myself alone, staring at the walls of my home, wondering how much of what I believed was true, and how much was just a carefully constructed lie. And then, a message came through from an unknown number. It read, "If you want peace, find the deed before they do." The game was far from over. The moment Mr. Malik handed me the yellowed, folded papers, I felt my breath catch. This was the secret will, handwritten by my late husband years ago, but never made official. Its edges were worn, the ink faded, but the signature was unmistakably his. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table, heart pounding. As I unfolded the will, memories flooded back. The nights my husband stayed up late, scribbling and making plans for our children's future. Now, those scribbles were my lifeline. The will clearly favored my daughter Aisha with a larger share of the estate. An attempt, I learned later, to balance out years of Raj's business ventures that had thrived on their father's initial investments. Raj's name was mentioned, but with a smaller, clearly defined portion. My mind raced. This document could change everything, but I knew Raj wouldn't accept it without a fight, and I had to be ready. I called Mr. Malik, and together, we arranged to present the will to the court. But before that, we had to verify its authenticity. The handwriting experts confirmed it was genuine. Relief washed over me, but I also realized how fragile the situation was. The next day, Raj showed up at my house, his usual smug grin replaced with something colder. "So, you found your little secret, huh?" He sneered. "This won't stop me. You can't hide from reality." His words stung, but I held my ground. "The truth will come out, Raj. This family deserves that much." And so, the legal battle took a sharper turn. While the secret will offered hope, it was the missing property deed that promised to deliver the final blow, or the final victory. According to Zara's earlier warning, the deed was for a small but valuable plot of land purchased secretly by my late husband years ago. Nobody outside of me and him knew about it, and now Raj's camp was desperate to find it. One afternoon, as I searched through old files in the attic, my fingers brushed against a dusty wooden box. Inside, among faded photographs and old letters, lay the deed, crisp, official, and clearly showing ownership. I felt a surge of triumph mixed with sadness. This deed could restore balance, but it also risked tearing the family apart forever. Before I could celebrate, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Neha, Raj's wife. "Stop digging. This will only make things worse." Ignoring the warning, I handed the deed to Mr. Malik, who prepared to add it as evidence in court. But then came the Shah. Raj's side claimed the deed was forged, that it was planted to manipulate the case. The accusation cut deep, turning the courtroom into a battleground of words and evidence. Witnesses were called. Experts testified. The fight grew more bitter with every passing day. I could see Raj's anger boiling over as he realized the tide might be turning against him. Still, I held on to hope. For the first time in months, I felt like I was reclaiming my family's legacy, piece by piece. The day of the final confrontation arrived, and the tension in the room was unbearable. Family members, lawyers, and close friends gathered as the truth was finally laid bare. Raj, usually so confident, was visibly shaken when an unexpected witness stepped forward, an old family friend who had known my late husband intimately. He revealed a conversation where my husband expressed his concerns about Raj's attitude toward the family fortune. "I wanted to protect Aisha, The friend testified, "She's always been the steady one, Raj. He's been reckless." The courtroom fell silent. Raj's face flushed with anger and shame. But the biggest shock came when Neha, Raj's wife, unexpectedly broke down and confessed that she and Raj had pressured me unfairly, driven by greed and frustration. Tears streamed down her face as she apologized. "Not just to me, but to the whole family. I was wrong," she said, voice trembling. "We lost sight of what family means." Her confession opened the door for Raj, who finally admitted his mistakes and asked for forgiveness, though it was clear the damage had been done. In that moment, I realized this story wasn't just about money or property. It was about forgiveness, humility, and the painful journey of healing broken bonds. As the court ruled in favor of the secret will and the deed, the greedy ambitions that threatened to destroy us were finally put to rest. But the scars remained, a reminder of the cost of betrayal. After the courtroom delivered its verdict in my favor, confirming the secret will and the rightful ownership of the property deed, I thought the storm might finally calm. But I quickly learned that winning on paper didn't mean winning in life. The real challenge was standing my ground when the people you once trusted turned cold, distant, or even hostile. Raj, my son, who had once been my pride and joy, had transformed into a man I barely recognized. The warmth I remembered was replaced with bitterness and silence. Calls I made went unanswered, texts were ignored. Neha, his wife, who had cried for forgiveness in court, now avoided my sight completely. It was as if the walls I had hoped would bring us together had only built new barriers between us. Yet, I refused to let their bitterness dictate my life. If anything, their rejection fueled my determination to protect my dignity and preserve what was left of my family's legacy. I began by reclaiming control over my daily routine. I started waking up early and going for long walks in the park near my home. The fresh air and rhythm of my footsteps reminded me I still had power over my own body and mind. These small moments of peace were my refuge amid the chaos. I also reconnected with old friends I had neglected over the years. Friends like Zara and Samir became pillars of strength. Their simple presence reminded me I wasn't alone. We spent afternoons sipping chai, sharing memories, and laughing in ways that made my heart lighter. Most importantly, I made a decision. I would no longer hide behind fear or hurt. I hired a trusted accountant to oversee the estate finances and property management. Every transaction, every document was handled with transparency and care. No more secrets, no more surprises. One day, I received a call from Aisha. Her voice was trembling, hopeful yet cautious. "Mom, can we meet? I want us to heal. I want us to be a family again somehow." Her words struck a chord deep inside me. It was a reminder that while some bridges had burned beyond repair, others could still be rebuilt if we were willing to try. But standing my ground also meant facing the harsh reality that some people might never change. At family gatherings, Raj's cold glances were a reminder of that bitter truth. Neha's whispered conversations with her parents were like knives. The atmosphere was thick with tension and unspoken resentment. There were moments I doubted myself, wondering if I had done enough, if I had loved enough. But then I would remember the night at the dining table, the threats, the betrayal, and I knew I had done what was necessary. Strength, I realized, was not just about fighting back. It was about knowing when to let go of the toxic noise and reclaim your own peace. As the legal dust settled, the real consequences of Raj and Neha's greed began to show, not just for themselves, but for everyone caught in the fallout. Raj's once promising business ventures, which had thrived under his father's initial investments and support, began to unravel. His reckless attempts to secure more assets had strained relationships with business partners and clients. Rumors spread that he was making risky deals without proper planning, desperate to cover debts that had piled up during the family dispute. One day, I heard from a mutual friend that Neha's parents, who had once championed Raj's cause, were growing distant. Disappointed by the public conflict and Raj's apparent stubbornness, they quietly withdrew their support. It was a painful but necessary reckoning. Raj's father-in-law, a stern man with a reputation for no-nonsense business acumen, called Raj for a private conversation. According to the friend, the elder man didn't mince words. You've burned bridges that can't be rebuilt. If you don't change, you'll be left with nothing, no family, no friends, no fortune. Meanwhile, Aisha's life took a different turn. She embraced her new responsibilities with grace and determination, managing the estate with wisdom and care. Slowly but surely, relatives and friends began to respect her leadership. Her quiet strength became a beacon in a sea of family turmoil. At family gatherings, the contrast between Aisha's calm presence and Raj's absence was stark. I could feel the weight of regret heavy in the room, especially in moments when Raj's eyes betrayed a longing, a wish to undo the past, to reclaim the warmth that greed had stolen. One afternoon, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from Raj. The handwriting was messy, his usual confident tone replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. Mom, it began, I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect your forgiveness yet, but I want you to know I'm trying to change. I hope someday we can rebuild what we lost. I folded the letter carefully, emotions swirling inside me. Was this a turning point? Could a heart hardened by greed soften enough to seek true forgiveness? Only time would tell. The aftermath of the battle left scars deeper than any property dispute. Family gatherings became fewer and farther between. Invitations were politely declined or ignored altogether. Old friends and relatives began to take sides quietly, creating invisible fault lines that fractured the family even further. In the quiet moments, I often found myself staring at old photographs, images of laughter, celebration, and togetherness. The family I remembered felt like a distant dream, buried beneath layers of betrayal and pain. But amid the wreckage, my daughter Aisha became my closest confidante. Together, we navigated the fragile terrain of fractured relationships, trying to piece together what remained of our family. Raj's absence was felt deeply. His silence at birthdays and holidays echoed louder than any words could. The void left by his retreat was a painful reminder of how greed and pride had severed bonds. One late evening, my phone rang. It was Raj. His voice was soft, almost breaking. Mom, can we talk? I want to make things right. For a moment I hesitated. Years of hurt and anger warred inside me. Could I open the door again? Was forgiveness even possible after so much pain? This family fallout taught me a harsh but vital truth. Even the strongest bonds can be tested, stretched, and sometimes broken beyond repair. But it also taught me about resilience, the strength to stand tall, even when surrounded by loss. As I prepared to face this uncertain new chapter, I held on to a fragile hope that someday the family we once dreamed of could find its way back from the darkness. After months of relentless battles, sleepless nights, and a heart weighed down by betrayal, I finally began to reclaim my peace. It wasn't an overnight transformation. Healing rarely is but a gradual awakening to life beyond the pain. The first step was learning to breathe again. I started small, waking up before dawn, stepping outside to feel the cool morning air on my face. Those early hours when the world was quiet and still became sacred. I walked through the park near my home, letting the gentle rustle of leaves and the songs of distant birds soothe the storm inside me. During those solitary walks, I reflected on everything that had happened, the anger, the tears, the broken trust, and slowly, piece by piece, I began to let it go. It wasn't easy. There were days when the memories hit like waves, threatening to pull me under. But each morning's calm was a reminder that I was still here, still standing. I also rediscovered forgotten joys. Painting, a hobby I hadn't touched since my younger days, became a new form of therapy. The colors on the canvas mirrored the emotions I couldn't say out loud, the rage, the sorrow, the hope. My brushes became my voice. Friends, too, played a vital role. Zara and Samir, who had stood by me from the beginning, invited me to gatherings, book clubs, and quiet dinners. Their laughter was a balm. Their presence a reminder that family isn't just who you're born to sometimes, it's who you choose. Slowly, I started traveling. Short trips at first, a weekend by the sea, a quiet cabin in the mountains, places where I could breathe freely, away from the shadows of my past. Each journey was a step toward freedom, a reclaiming of the joy that had been buried beneath the weight of family drama. Of course, peace didn't mean forgetting. I kept the memories, the lessons learned etched deep in my heart, but I refused to let bitterness dictate my days. The inheritance battle had taken much, but it hadn't taken my spirit. Then, one afternoon, as I was sipping tea and leafing through old photo albums, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something in the tone of the voice stopped me. "Hello, Mrs. Khan. It's Amir, an old friend of your husband's." His voice was warm yet serious. He spoke of news that could change everything again, a new chapter that I hadn't anticipated. As I hung up, my heart pounded. Just when I thought I had finally found peace, the past had other plans. Looking back on everything, the betrayal, the battles, the heartbreak, I realize now that the most valuable lessons weren't about money or property. They were about respect, love, and the kind of legacy that lasts beyond any will or deed. First and foremost, I learned that respect matters more than money. It's easy to forget this when greed clouds judgment. Watching Raj lose himself in his demands, seeing how the family fractured because of selfishness, taught me that money without respect is hollow. It can't buy peace or trust, and it certainly can't heal wounds. Respect is about listening, really listening, even when you don't agree. It's about honoring the people who built the foundation beneath you, not just demanding what you think you deserve. And most importantly, respect is about valuing people's feelings and dignity over material gain. I also learned that forgiveness is powerful, but it doesn't mean forgetting or allowing harm to continue. Forgiving Neha when she broke down and admitted her mistakes, or even Raj when he finally reached out with his apology, wasn't easy. It took strength to accept that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, to unshackle your heart from bitterness. But forgiveness isn't a license to let others hurt you again, it's setting boundaries while letting go of anger. Another lesson was the true meaning of legacy. Legacy isn't just about the money or the land you leave behind. It's about the values, the love, and the respect you pass on. My late husband's secret will reflected that he wanted fairness, not favoritism. He wanted us to hold onto each other, not tear each other apart. The journey also taught me about self-respect and standing firm. When Raj threatened me, when he and his wife tried to bully and pressure me, I had to find a strength I didn't know I had. Sometimes, loving yourself means saying no to people you once trusted and protecting your peace fiercely. Sharing these lessons became a way to heal. Whether through conversations with Aisha, quiet talks with friends, or even here, sharing my story with you, I wanted to make sure no one else felt the loneliness of betrayal or the sting of disrespect. So if you're watching this and going through something similar, whether it's family drama, betrayal, or struggles over inheritance, remember this. Love is important, but respect is everything. Don't let greed blind you. Stand tall, protect your peace, and forgive when you can, but never lose sight of your worth. This story isn't just mine. It's a lesson for every family that values more than just material things. It's a reminder that the true inheritance is dignity, respect, and love, things no one can take away, no matter how hard they try. The room was quiet, the kind of silence that carries the weight of everything left unsaid. I sat alone, the evening light casting long shadows across the walls of my home, the home that had seen so much joy and so much pain. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal that cut deeper than I ever imagined. The battles fought not just in court, but in hearts. And the fragile peace I had finally begun to build. And I realized that this story wasn't just about inheritance or property. It was about the ties that bind us and what happens when those ties are tested. Aisha came to me one evening, her eyes full of quiet strength. "Mom," she said softly, "we've been through hell, but I believe we can heal. Not because the past disappears, but because we choose to move forward." Her words were a balm. In that moment, I understood that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about carrying the past without letting it define us. Not long after, Raj called again. This time, his voice held a vulnerability I hadn't heard before. "Mom, I want to try. Not just for the inheritance, but for us, for family." I didn't answer immediately. Forgiveness doesn't come on command, but I promised myself I would listen, truly listen, and see where this path might lead. As I sat back, reflecting on all of it, one truth shone brighter than any bitterness. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too. That simple truth carried me through the darkest nights and gave me the courage to face whatever came next. And so, as this chapter closes, I stand not just as a survivor of family betrayal, but as a woman who reclaimed her power, her peace, and her dignity. Because at the end of the day, money can be lost or taken, but real respect, is a legacy no one can steal. Thank you for listening to my story. If there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this: protect your peace, hold your dignity close, and never let anyone tell you what you deserve. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it feels like mine.